Welcome back, chemistry fans. Today we are going to get to complete our first laboratory. It's nothing really chemical related. It's just kind of getting us oriented with what the expectations will be for this year in the AP chemistry laboratory. We're going to make silly putty. As is the case, though, we won't just simply make the silly putty and have fun and enjoy it. We have to torture it somehow. We have to measure it some way, and we have to then create data for it and analyze the data, because that's what AP laboratories are all about. Not just having experience, but analyzing it and learning from it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you a cup, and I've got some here because we're going to make an original version of the silly putty, and it starts with just regular old Elmer's glue, and then we're going to torture it some way that you get to decide on your own. So I'm just going to fill this up with a wee little bit of glue. I'm not going to put a whole lot in here because I don't want to get my fingers too messy in the process. So I'm going to, again, fill them up with the exact same amount. I have measured it so they're exactly equal. Maybe not, but they're pretty doggone close. Maybe I'll squirt a little bit more in here just to make sure that it feels like they are perfectly even. And then I'm going to switch my cameras over to the laboratory camera here. And what we will see now are those same two cups here, oriented such. Well, you know what, I can do it this way. Now the two cups are in here, and what I'm going to add to this is just your bottle of what is called, it's a soap solution. And so we're going to add this little bit of soap solution into it, and it has some chemicals in it that are going to cause a reaction. So I am just going to add some of this to one of them, the original one, and I'm going to stir it up, and you could see that right away it is starting to cause this reaction where the glue is no longer this drippy substance that it is over here, where it would be somewhat of an adhesive and it's stringy like that. It has now caused this reaction in here. And so it seems like it's got some different properties. So what we're going to do with the with this silly putty is I'm going to take it out of the container here, and I am going to then start manipulating it, start squishing it, if you will, so that it can start becoming more of a silly putty that you and I could appreciate in our hands. It's a mess, though. It is quite the little mess here. And so as you notice, I am squishing it, and it's getting a little bit on my hands, and it would get on your hands too if you were in class. The best way to remedy that is to stick it back into the borax, which is the soap solution that we have, and try and get it to get in contact with that special chemical. And I'm just going to suck it up and manipulate it here a little bit, and it's going to, again, get all over my hands. What we are actually creating here is something called a polymer, a plastic. And if we were to examine what a plastic is under a microscope, under a superpowered microscope, what we would see is that it's a long chain of carbons. And so polymers, plastics, at their root, all they are is a long chain of carbons. Well, by accident, we started to figure out that these long chains of carbon have a lot of energy in them. And if we harness them from the ground, we can burn them. Well, but we didn't want to make them too dirty, and our engines didn't like them being dirty. So what we started to do was we refined them. And that's where that word refineries come from for our gasoline. And so what we then figured out is that some of the materials that come off of them, byproducts, have long chains of carbon that are not necessarily combustible like gasoline is. And those would be our polymers. And so this is no different from that, in that what we've done is we've rearranged the carbons that were in the glue and turn them into long chains that are a little bit more rigid. And so what I'm going to do here is just what I did, is I'm taking this and I've turned it into what is now a less sticky. And if I keep playing with it, actually, let me put a little bit more of the borax on it here. And what we'll find out is that it will become less sticky and more like the Silly Putty toys that you would enjoy as a kid, or maybe today as a teenager. But what you can't do is you can't panic, and you cannot start using a paper towel. If you use a paper towel in the process, you will stick to the paper towel, because at its heart, this has still got much of the glue properties. And so all it would do is cause you a bigger mess and a lot more frustration. So stick with the process. Trust that I will be there with the borax to pour over your hands, and all of this stuff will come off. And eventually what you'll have is a material that can bounce, and it has properties kind of what like a toy would have, and it's stretchy as well. Okay, so let me switch cameras back now so that we can make some measurements and we can see just how far this thing is going to stretch. So give me a second here. All right, so we're back over here now on my table top. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put a ruler. I am not going to use a, that is upside down to you. So let's turn it that away. And now you can read it. Well, that is backwards. Now, how about that? 1, 2, it's upside down. Let's move the camera. Try that. Now, life is good. Get the hang of this eventually. Well, what in the world? Goodness gracious. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they're backwards. I don't know what I need to do, but I think we can all figure it out. And I'm not going to waste any more time. What we're going to do is we're going to take this Silly Putty and we're going to see how far we can make it stretch. Well, it looks like mine got to somewhere out here about 20 centimeters. So I'm going to do it a second time. I'm going to ball it all back up together, put it all back together. I will put it at the 0 line right down here for centimeters, and I'm going to stretch it until it looks like it broke about 18. All right, so let's do it one more time. So I've got 20 and I've got 18 are my values. So I'm going to stretch it at 0, and it looks like 19 is where it broke. Okay, so now I have collected data. We're going to take that data, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it onto a chart. Now, before we do that, you're going to make a second version of Play-Doh, of Silly Putty, and you're going to change it in some way. I'm going to give you some materials that you can add to it, such as salt, such as sugar, such as fragrances and food colorings. And you're going to manipulate it, and you're going to see what changes with the distance that it can stretch. Okay, what you will do with that, however, then is we will then put that data onto a chart. So you are going to open up a Google spreadsheet, Google Sheets. If you don't know how to do this, I will attach a link, or you could just simply Google Sheets and it will come up. So I'm just going to title this one Silly Putty because that's the lab that we are doing. So it makes sense that I would want to do that. Now, what I'm going to do here is the type of Silly Putty. So I'm going to have my label here is type of Silly Putty. Underneath that, I'm going to have the original version. And then right underneath that, I'm going to have the new kind, or the varied. Okay. Over here, it's going to be the length, GTH of break, before break, length title it whatever you want. I don't care. And then underneath it, well, how far did it go? Well, I had 3 runs of it, didn't I? So I had 18, 19, and 20. So the average of that one is 19. And then below that, well, I'm going to make it up. I'm going to say that because I tortured this stuff, it caused it to stretch at a smaller rate. So I'm going to put it at 8. This is everything that I need you to do. Just learn how to create a graph. Now, this is not acceptable though, so it doesn't understand what we want. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change that to centimeters. And under here, I'm going to change this to type of silly putty. So I need to make sure that my headings are different. I also need to change the color of this series. Let's see if we can change. Well, they're both red. Let's see if I can make them different. Well, I can't. That's okay. We get the idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. And so what I would love for you to be able to do is to create your data or display your data on a graph from Google Sheets. Now, what you can do at this point is click on the graph and you can actually copy this chart. And then if you are doing your work as a Google Doc, let's try a new one. If we are doing our work as a Google Doc, so Unit 1 Laboratories, I can then add this chart in. Link, paste, paste. And that way, it seamlessly puts the data that you just collected into your graph, and then you can start answering some of the other questions that are necessary, the titles that are on this one. Okay, this is everything that I wish to show you for your first laboratory silly putty. We have accomplished it. We have gotten ourselves together, and I'm hopeful that you had a little bit of fun. If you weren't here, unfortunately, that's the reason why you're watching this video. Thank you so much. I hope that you have a great afternoon, and I'll see you in class soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.